The headlights of my Ford pickup cut through the darkness as I pulled into the Sleepy Inn parking lot at 1:23 a.m. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white. 23 years of marriage, and it all came down to this moment in a seedy highway motel. I'd followed them here after finding the receipt in Lena's purse. Room 237, the same room number from that horror movie she always claimed to hate. The irony wasn't lost on me. My name is Mick Landry, and I used to think I knew my wife. The motel was one of those places that charged by the hour and didn't ask questions. Peeling paint, flickering neon sign, and the kind of clientele that preferred cash transactions. Not exactly the place you'd expect to find the HR director of TechFlow Solutions and her chiropractor boyfriend. I sat in my truck for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. Part of me wanted to drive away, pretend I'd never found that receipt, never noticed the late-night work emergencies that always seemed to involve Dr. Joel Hartman. But the other part, the part that had been eating at me for months, needed to see this through. The door to room 237 was slightly ajar. Through the gap, I could see movement, hear muffled voices. Lena's laugh, the same one she used to reserve for me, drifted through the night air. I climbed out of the truck, my work boots crunching on the gravel. Each step felt like walking through quicksand. When I reached the door, I didn't knock. I just pushed it open. They were on the bed, tangled in cheap motel sheets. Lena's perfectly styled blonde hair was a mess. Her business suit crumpled on the floor next to Joel's designer jeans. They were so caught up in each other that they didn't notice me at first. "Well, this is cozy," I said. Lena's head snapped toward me, her blue eyes wide with shock. Joel scrambled to cover himself with a pillow, his gym-sculpted chest heaving. "Mick," Lena gasped. "What are you doing here?" "Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing." I leaned against the doorframe, trying to look calmer than I felt, though I guess the answer's pretty obvious. Joel found his voice first. "Look, man, we can explain." "Can you?" I stepped into the room, letting the door swing shut behind me. "Because I'm really curious how you explain my wife of 23 years screwing her chiropractor in a Fleabag motel." Lena pulled the sheet up to her neck, her face flushing red. "Mick, please, let's talk about this at home." "Home?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean the home where you've been lying to me for months? Where you've been sneaking around, making up stories about late meetings and girls' nights out?" "It's not what you think," she started. "It's exactly what I think." I looked at Joel, who was trying to inch toward his clothes. "Don't even think about it, Doc. We're all going to have a nice long chat." Joel's face had gone pale. For all his muscles and swagger, he looked like a scared kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "Mick, I never meant for this to happen." "Sure you did." I pulled out my phone. "In fact, I bet you've been planning this for a while. All those adjustments you've been giving my wife." "Real professional, Doc." "You don't understand," Lena said, her voice taking on that manipulative tone I'd grown to hate. "Our marriage has been dead for years. We're like strangers living in the same house." "Dead?" I stared at her. "Last month, you were planning our anniversary dinner. Last week, you were talking about redoing the kitchen. But I guess that was all just an act, wasn't it?" She had the decency to look ashamed, but only for a moment. Then her expression hardened, and I saw a side of her I'd never seen before. "Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me instead of that hardware store, things would be different," she snapped. "Don't," I held up a hand. "Don't you dare try to make this my fault. I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for your car, your clothes, your spa weekends. I supported your career when you wanted to go back to school. I've been nothing but faithful to you for over 2 decades. Joel cleared his throat. "Maybe we should all calm down and—" "Shut up," I said without looking at him. "You don't get to talk. You're just the parasite who decided to feed off my marriage." I turned back to Lena. "How long?" "What?" "How long have you been cheating on me? And don't lie, I'm done with your lies." She lifted her chin defiantly. 6 months. 6 months, I nodded slowly. "So when you were crying about your mother's cancer scare, you were really with him. When you missed Sarah's college graduation because of work, you were with him. Sarah was our daughter, 21 and away at school. Thank God she wasn't here to see this. Mick, when you told me you needed space to figure out what you wanted, you'd already figured it out, hadn't you? You just didn't have the guts to tell me." Lena's mask finally slipped completely. "Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Joel for 6 months, and I'm not sorry. You want to know the truth? I haven't been happy in this marriage for years. You're boring, Mick. Predictable. Joel makes me feel alive again. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my expression neutral. Feel alive, huh? In a $20 motel room that smells like disinfectant and broken dreams? At least he pays attention to me, she shot back. When's the last time you surprised me with anything? When's the last time you made me laugh? I made you laugh last Tuesday when I told you about Mrs. Henderson trying to return a toilet plunger she'd obviously used. That's not the same thing. You're right. It's better. It's real life, Lena. Not some fantasy you've cooked up with Dr. Feelgood here. Joel finally found his courage. Look, Mick, I know this is hard, but maybe it's for the best. You and Lena clearly want different things. I turned to face him fully for the first time. You know what, Doc? You're absolutely right. She wants a lying, cheating piece of garbage who seduces married women. I want a wife who honors her vows. That's enough, Lena said, climbing out of bed with the sheet wrapped around her. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air like smoke. I'd known they were coming, but hearing them still felt like a punch to the gut. A divorce, I repeated. Yes, we can work out the details later, but I want you to move out of the house tomorrow. I almost laughed. Even caught red-handed in a motel room, she was trying to control the situation. Classic Lena. I don't think so, I said quietly. What? I said I don't think so. See, that house is in both our names. The mortgage is in both our names. And until a judge says otherwise, I'm not going anywhere. Her face flushed again. You can't force me to live with you after this. I'm not forcing you to do anything. You're free to leave anytime you want. But I'll be staying in my house, sleeping in my bed, and living my life. Joel stood up, apparently deciding he'd heard enough. This is getting out of hand. Maybe I should go. Good idea, I said. In fact, I think you should stay away from my wife from now on. You can't tell me who I can and can't see, Lena protested. Watch me. The room fell silent except for the hum of the ancient air conditioner. I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was being replaced by something else, something colder. You know what the funny thing is? I said. I actually thought about buying you something special for our anniversary next month. 24 years. I was going to surprise you with a trip to Italy. You always talked about wanting to see Rome. Lena's expression flickered, but she didn't say anything. But I guess you've already got your excitement, don't you? I looked around the dingy motel room. Real romantic, by the way. Nothing says true love like hourly rates and stained carpet. Go to hell, Mick, she whispered. Already there, sweetheart. But don't worry, I won't be staying long. I turned and walked toward the door, then paused with my hand on the handle. Oh, and Doc? You might want to get tested. Lena's always been a little loose with the truth. Makes you wonder what else she's been loose with. I left them there in their cheap motel room and walked back to my truck. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of them in my rearview mirror, standing in the doorway, watching me go. 23 years of marriage, and it ended in a parking lot that reeked of motor oil and regret. But as I headed home to our empty house, I realized something. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, staring at the wedding photos on the refrigerator. 23 years of smiles and anniversaries, vacations and holidays. All of it a lie, apparently. At least the last 6 months had been. When Lena came home the next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She walked through the front door at 7:15 a.m., her hair perfectly styled again, wearing a fresh outfit she must have kept in her car. Always prepared, my Lena. We need to talk, she said, setting her purse on the kitchen counter. I thought we covered everything last night. She poured herself coffee from the pot I'd made, adding cream and sugar with the same precise movements she'd used for 20 years. Some habits die hard. I meant what I said about the divorce, she said without looking at me. I've already called Patricia Morrison. She's the best family lawyer in town. Patricia Morrison. I knew her from the hardware store. She'd bought a new deadbolt last month after her own divorce was finalized. The irony was almost funny. Good for you, I said. I hope she's expensive. Lena's jaw tightened. Don't be petty, Mick. We can do this civilly, or we can make it ugly. Your choice. My choice? I stood up, my chair scraping against the linoleum. You're the one who chose to screw around with Dr. Wonderful. You're the one who chose to lie to me for 6 months. You're the one who chose to blow up our marriage. But now you want to lecture me about choices? I told you last night our marriage was already over. I just made it official. By cheating on me in a motel room. By finding someone who actually cares about me. I stared at her, this woman I'd shared a bed with for over 2 decades. He cares about you? Lena, he's a chiropractor who drives a BMW and wears more hair product than you do. You're not his first married patient, and you won't be his last. You don't know anything about Joel. I know he's 38 years old and has never been married. I know he's been sued twice for malpractice. I know he lives in a condo that costs more than most people's houses. And I know he's been screwing my wife in cheap motels. Her face went white. How do you know all that? Because unlike you, I don't stick my head in the sand when something's important. I spent last night doing research instead of sleeping. It was true. After I'd gotten home, I'd spent hours on the internet digging into Dr. Joel Hartman's background. Public records were amazing things when you knew where to look. You investigated him? I investigated the man who's been sleeping with my wife. Sue me. Lena set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. You're scaring me, Mick. Good. Maybe you should be scared. Maybe you should have thought about consequences before you decided to destroy our family. I didn't destroy anything. I just, what? Made a mistake? Had a momentary lapse in judgment? Lena, you've been planning this for months. The late meetings, the new clothes, the sudden interest in going to the gym. You've been preparing to leave me while pretending everything was fine. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. I want you out of the house, she said instead. And I want a wife who doesn't cheat on me. Looks like we're both going to be disappointed. The standoff lasted for a full minute. Finally, Lena grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I'm staying at Trish's tonight, she said. We'll figure out the living arrangements later. Trish Valdez was Lena's best friend since college, a real estate agent who'd never met a married man she didn't like. Perfect choice for a confidant. Give Trish my regards, I called after her. Tell her I said thanks for being such a good influence. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I finished my cold coffee and got ready for work. Landry's Hardware had been in my family for 30 years, passed down from my father when he retired. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it had supported our family through good times and bad. My assistant manager, Denny Walsh, was already there when I arrived, unloading a shipment of garden hoses in the back room. Denny was 52, built like a linebacker gone soft, and had been my best friend since high school. If anyone was going to understand what I was going through, it would be him. You look like hell, he said when he saw me. Feel worse? Lena, I told him everything. The motel, the confrontation, the divorce threat. Denny listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head or muttering under his breath. Son of a witch, he said when I finished. I never liked that doctor. Too smooth, you know? Like a used car salesman in a white coat? Yeah, well, apparently Lena disagrees. What are you going to do? It was a good question. What was I going to do? Roll over and let them destroy my life? Slink away quietly while they laughed about the boring husband they'd fooled for 6 months? I'm going to fight, I said. Fight how? I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew I'd figure it out. I'd spent 23 years being the reliable, predictable husband, the guy who fixed things when they broke, who paid the bills on time, who never caused drama or made waves. But that guy had gotten cheated on and humiliated. Maybe it was time for a different approach. The day passed slowly. I helped customers, processed orders, and tried to act normal. But every time I thought about Lena and Joel in that motel room, my hands clenched into fists. Around 3 o'clock, Marcia Kowalski came in looking for a new deadbolt. Marcia was a regular customer, a widow in her 60s who knew everyone in town and wasn't shy about sharing what she knew. Heard about you and Lena, she said while I rang up her purchase. Word traveled fast in a town of 15,000 people. Did you now? Trisha's got a big mouth. She was at Murphy's pub last night telling anyone who'd listen about Lena's new romance, made it sound like some kind of fairy tale. Murphy's pub was the local watering hole, the kind of place where secrets went to die. If Trish had been broadcasting Lena's affair there, half the town would know by morning. Fairy tale, I repeated. That's what she called it. Said Lena had finally found her true love after years of being stuck in a dead marriage. The words stung, but I kept my expression neutral. Interesting way to describe adultery. Marcia leaned closer, lowering her voice. You want my advice? Don't let them get away with it. This town's full of people who think they're better than everyone else, and it's about time someone knocked them down a peg. After she left, I stood behind the counter thinking about what she'd said. Lena and Joel thought they were untouchable. The successful businesswoman and the smooth-talking doctor living their fairy tale romance while the boring husband licked his wounds in private. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. That evening, I drove past Joel's office on my way home. Hartman Chiropractic was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a yoga studio, the kind of place that catered to suburban professionals with more money than sense. His BMW was still in the parking lot. I pulled into a space across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, Joel emerged, looking every inch the successful professional in his tailored suit and Italian shoes. He climbed into his car and pulled out of the parking lot, heading toward the expensive side of town. I followed him. He drove to Lena's office building and parked in the visitors section. A few minutes later, Lena came out, looking around nervously before getting into his car. They were being careful now, but not careful enough. I followed them to a restaurant across town, an upscale place called Chez Laurent that charged $30 for a chicken breast and called it cuisine. Through the window, I could see them at a corner table, holding hands and gazing into each other's eyes like teenagers. My phone buzzed with a text message from Lena. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I almost laughed. Even after getting caught red-handed, she was still lying to me. But two could play that game. I drove home and spent the evening making plans. Real plans. Not the half-formed ideas of revenge I'd been nursing all day. If Lena wanted to play games, I'd show her how the game was really played. By the time she came home at midnight, I was ready. The war was about to begin. The next few days fell into a strange routine. Lena would leave early for work, supposedly to avoid awkward conversations, but really to meet Joel for breakfast at various restaurants around town. She'd come home late, full of excuses about important projects and client meetings, and I'd smile and nod and pretend to believe her while I gathered information. Denny's nephew Tyler was a computer science major at the community college, and for $50 he showed me how to track someone's location using their phone. Turns out Lena had never changed our shared family plan, which meant I could see exactly where she was at any given moment. Very enlightening. On Wednesday, her phone showed she was at the office all day, but the credit card statements told a different story. Lunch at the Riverside Inn, a hotel restaurant 20 miles out of town. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, and a room charge for 3 hours. On Thursday, she claimed to be at a professional development seminar, but her phone pinged from Joel's condo complex from noon until 6 p.m. Friday was the most interesting. According to Lena, she was having drinks with clients after work. According to her phone, she was at Victoria's Secret, then at a lingerie boutique I'd never heard of, then back at Joel's place until almost midnight. My wife was putting more effort into her affair than she'd put into our marriage in years. But I wasn't just collecting evidence for the divorce. I was learning their patterns, their habits, their weaknesses, and I was discovering that Lena had been busier than I'd imagined. "You need to see this," Denny said Friday afternoon, sliding a manila folder across my desk. Inside were printouts from social media, screenshots of conversations, and photos from various local events, all featuring Lena and Joel, but dating back much further than 6 months. "Where did you get these?" "Marcia's daughter works at the bank. She's been watching this whole thing unfold for over a year." A year. Lena had been lying to me for an entire year. The photos told the story. Joel at Lena's company Christmas party 8 months ago, described as a friend from the gym. Joel at the charity auction last spring, bidding on the same items as Lena. Joel at the 4th of July festival, standing just a little too close to my wife while I was working the hardware store's booth. "Look at this one," Denny said, pointing to a screenshot. It was a text conversation between Lena and her friend Ava, dated 3 months ago. Lena: "He still doesn't suspect anything. Sometimes I think he's completely oblivious." Ava: "Maybe he just trusts you." Lena: "Trust is just another word for naive. Joel says I should tell him soon, but honestly, why rock the boat? This arrangement works for everyone." Ava: "Everyone except Mick." Lena: "Mick's fine. He has his store, his routine, his simple little life. He doesn't need the complications of a real relationship." I read the exchange 3 times, each time feeling the knife twist a little deeper. Not only had she been cheating on me, she'd been laughing about it, discussing me like I was some pathetic fool who deserved what was happening to him. "There's more," Denny said quietly. The next screenshot was from a group chat between Lena, Trish, and Ava. Trish: "So when are you going to dump the dead weight?" Lena: "Soon. Joel's lease is up in September. We're thinking about getting a place together." Ava: "What about the house?" Lena: "Mick can keep it. He'll need somewhere to live when I'm done with him." Trish: "You're being too generous. Take him for everything he's worth." Lena: There's not much to take. The store barely breaks even, and he's never been ambitious enough to invest in anything worthwhile. Joel makes more in a month than Mick makes in a year. Ava. Still, you deserve something for putting up with him all these years. Lena. I deserve Joel. Everything else is just details. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness anymore, from rage. You okay? Denny asked. I'm perfect. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went to Murphy's Pub. The place was crowded for a Friday night, filled with the usual mix of construction workers, office employees, and retirees who had nowhere else to go. I found a seat at the bar and ordered a beer, then settled in to listen. It didn't take long. Poor Mick Landry, I heard someone say from a table behind me. 23 years of marriage down the drain. I heard she's been cheating on him for over a year, another voice added. Everyone knew except him. That doctor's got some nerve messing around with married women. Hey, it takes two to tango. Lena's not exactly innocent. Still, you'd think she'd have the decency to divorce him first. I turned around to see who was talking. 3 guys from the construction crew that had been renovating the bank building, all of them regular customers at the store. Evening, Mick, one of them said, noticing me. How you holding up? Can't complain. Hell of a thing, though. Wife running around on you like that. Yeah, I agreed. Hell of a thing. I finished my beer and was about to leave when I heard a familiar laugh from the back corner. Trish Valdez was holding court at a large table, surrounded by what looked like half the town's divorced women. And she was talking about Lena. She's never been happier, Trish was saying. Joel treats her like a queen, takes her to nice restaurants, buys her beautiful things, makes her feel appreciated. What about her husband? Someone asked. What about him? Mick's a nice enough guy, but he's been taking Lena for granted for years. She deserves better. She deserves someone who isn't married to her, another voice said. Oh, please. That marriage has been over for years. They're like roommates who happen to share a last name. I walked over to their table. The conversation stopped abruptly when they saw me. Ladies, I said pleasantly. Trish. Trish had the grace to look embarrassed, but only for a moment. Mick, I didn't see you come in. I'll bet. Having a nice evening discussing my personal life? We were just talking about how my wife deserves better than me. I heard. The table fell silent. Every woman there was staring at me, waiting to see what I'd do next. You know what, Trish? You're absolutely right. Lena does deserve better. She deserves a husband who's honest with her, who doesn't sneak around behind her back, who doesn't lie to her face every single day. Trish's face flushed. Mick, I think you're misunderstanding. Am I? Because it sounds to me like you've been encouraging my wife to cheat on me, like you've been helping her justify destroying our marriage. That's not what happened. No? Then what did happen? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been Lena's accomplice in this whole mess. One of the other women spoke up. Maybe you should look at your own behavior before you start blaming other people. I turned to face her. My behavior? You mean like working 60 hours a week to support my family? Like being faithful to my wife for 23 years? Like believing her when she said she loved me? Like ignoring her needs, Trish said, finding her courage again. Like treating her like a piece of furniture instead of a woman. Is that what she told you? That I ignored her? She didn't have to tell me. Anyone with eyes could see it. I nodded slowly. Anyone with eyes? Interesting phrase. I looked around the table at these women, most of whom I'd known for years. Customers, neighbors, people I'd helped with home repairs and hardware emergencies, and every single one of them was looking at me like I was the villain in this story. Well, ladies, I hope you're all enjoying the show. But just remember, if Lena can lie to me for a year, she can lie to you too. I left them sitting there and walked out of the pub. But as I reached my truck, I heard footsteps behind me. Mick, wait! I turned to see Marcia Kowalski hurrying across the parking lot. Don't listen to them, she said when she reached me. They don't know what they're talking about. Don't they? Trish Valdez has been divorced 3 times. She thinks every marriage is doomed to fail because hers always do. And the rest of them are just jealous because you're one of the good ones. Doesn't feel like it right now. That's because you're hurt. But hurt doesn't make you stupid, and it doesn't make you wrong. She patted my arm. You want some advice from an old woman who's seen it all? Sure. Stop trying to be the nice guy. Nice guys finish last, especially in situations like this. You want to win this thing? Stop playing by rules that the other side threw out the window months ago. She walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with her words echoing in my head. Stop being the nice guy. Stop playing by their rules. It was time to change the game entirely. Monday morning, I put my plan into action. It started small. A phone call to Joel's office, made from a burner phone I'd bought over the weekend. Hartman Chiropractic, this is Rebecca. Hi, I'd like to file a complaint about Dr. Hartman. Oh, what kind of complaint? The inappropriate kind. He's been having an affair with one of his patients, a married woman. There was a long pause. Sir, I'm not sure what you want me to. I want you to pass the message along to the state medical board. Doctors aren't supposed to sleep with their patients, are they? I hung up before she could respond. The medical board complaint would take weeks to process if it went anywhere at all, but it would create a paper trail and it would make Joel nervous. Nervous people made mistakes. Next, I drove to Lena's office. TechFlow Solutions occupied the top 2 floors of a downtown office building, all glass and steel and modern efficiency. Lena's BMW was in her reserved parking spot, right next to the employee entrance. I didn't go inside. Instead, I waited across the street until I saw Joel's car pull into the visitor parking area. He walked into the building like he owned the place, confident and smug. 20 minutes later, they both came out together. Lena looked around nervously before getting into Joel's car, but she didn't see me watching from my truck. They drove to a coffee shop on the other side of town. Through the window, I could see them at a corner table, deep in conversation. Joel was gesturing animatedly, and Lena kept shaking her head. My phone call had rattled them. I took pictures with the zoom lens I'd bought online, capturing their faces clearly. Then I drove to the local newspaper office. The Tribune was a small weekly paper that survived mostly on local advertising and community news. The editor, Bill Morrison, had been a customer of mine for years. Mick, he said when I walked into his office, how are you holding up? Small towns. Everyone knew everyone else's business. I'm fine, Bill. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about a story. Oh? I handed him the photos I'd just taken. Local businesswoman having an affair with her chiropractor. Might be interesting to your readers. Bill looked at the pictures, then at me. Mick, I can't print these. This is gossip, not news. What if I told you the chiropractor is under investigation by the state medical board for sleeping with patients? Is he? He will be. Bill leaned back in his chair. Look, I understand you're angry, but I'm not asking you to print anything untrue. I'm just suggesting you might want to keep an eye on this story. See where it goes. And if I don't, then you don't. But when the medical board investigation becomes public record, and when the divorce proceedings start making headlines, you'll wish you'd gotten ahead of the story. I left him with the photos and drove back to the hardware store. Denny was waiting for me with a grin on his face. You should see this, he said, handing me his phone. It was a Facebook post from Ava, Lena's assistant. Some people think they can treat others like garbage and get away with it, but karma always catches up eventually. #truth wins, #no more lies. She's turning on Lena, Denny observed. Looks like it. What did you do? Nothing yet, but word's getting around about the affair, and people are starting to choose sides. It was true. Over the next few days, I watched the social dynamics of our small town shift in real time. Lena had always been popular, the successful career woman who seemed to have it all together. But adultery was still adultery, and a lot of people didn't approve. The first crack appeared on Tuesday. Lena's book club, a group of professional women who met monthly to discuss literature and drink wine, canceled their upcoming meeting. According to Marcia, who heard it from her neighbor, several members had decided they didn't want to associate with someone who cheated on her husband. Wednesday brought more fallout. The charity committee that Lena chaired for the annual hospital fundraiser asked her to step down. Officially, it was because of her busy schedule. Unofficially, the committee members didn't want the scandal to hurt their fundraising efforts. By Thursday, Lena was furious. What did you do? She demanded when she cornered me in the kitchen that morning. About what? Don't play dumb, Mick. People are treating me like I have the plague. My book club, the charity committee, even people at work are acting strange. Maybe they don't approve of adultery. This is your doing. You've been spreading stories about me. I haven't told anyone anything they didn't already know. You and Joel weren't exactly subtle. She slammed her coffee mug down on the counter. You're trying to ruin my reputation. I'm not trying to do anything. Your reputation is ruining itself. I want you to stop. Stop what? Stop existing? Stop living in my own town? Stop having friends and neighbors who can see what's happening? Stop being vindictive. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I'd married had been kind, honest, and caring. This woman was selfish, manipulative, and cruel. You want to know what vindictive looks like? I asked quietly. What? This isn't vindictive, Lena. This is just the beginning. That afternoon, I made another phone call, this one to Joel's landlord. Mr. Peterson, this is Mick Landry. I own Landry's Hardware downtown. Sure, Mick. What can I do for you? I wanted to give you a heads up about one of your tenants, Dr. Joel Hartman in Unit 4B. What about him? He's been using his condo for some questionable activities, bringing married women there during business hours, that kind of thing. I thought you should know in case it becomes a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where angry husbands start showing up at your property. The kind where the local news starts asking questions about what goes on in your building. There was a long pause. I appreciate the heads up, Mick. Just being a good neighbor. Friday evening, I was closing up the store when my phone rang. It was Joel. We need to talk, he said without preamble. Do we? This harassment has to stop. What harassment? You know exactly what I'm talking about. The medical board complaint, the calls to my landlord, spreading rumors around town. Sounds like you're having a rough week. Meet me at Murphy's Pub in an hour. We're going to settle this like men. Are we now? 1 hour, Mick. Don't make me come looking for you. He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone for a moment, then called Denny. Want to grab a drink? I asked. Always. What's the occasion? Dr. Wonderful wants to have a conversation. Denny chuckled. This should be interesting. We arrived at Murphy's 15 minutes early and found a table with a good view of the entrance. The place was busy for a Friday night, filled with the usual crowd of locals unwinding after a long week. Joel walked in at exactly 8 o'clock, scanning the room until he spotted me. He looked like he'd come straight from work, still wearing his expensive suit and polished shoes. But there was something different about his usual confidence. Something shaky. He walked over to our table and sat down without being invited. Denny, he said with a nod. Doc. Joel turned to me. This ends now. What ends? The campaign of harassment. The phone calls, the complaints, the rumors, all of it. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Mick. I know it's you. You know what I know? I know you've been screwing my wife for over a year. I know you've been laughing about it behind my back. And I know you think you're going to ride off into the sunset with her while I quietly disappear. Joel's jaw tightened. Your marriage was over long before I came along. Was it? Because last time I checked, we were still living in the same house, still wearing our wedding rings, still pretending to be a family. Pretending is right. Lena hasn't been happy in years. And you're going to make her happy? A guy who's never been married, never had kids, never committed to anything more serious than a lease agreement? I love her. I almost laughed. You love the idea of her. The successful businesswoman, the trophy wife, the conquest. But you don't know her, Joel. You don't know that she hates the smell of coffee in the morning but drinks it anyway. You don't know that she cries during dog food commercials. You don't know that she's terrified of thunderstorms and still sleeps with a nightlight. Joel's expression flickered, but he recovered quickly. I know enough. Do you? Do you know that she's been lying to you too? What? Oh, you didn't know. She's been telling you I'm some boring, inattentive husband who doesn't appreciate her. But she's been telling me that you're just a fling, a midlife crisis she'll get over eventually. It was a lie, but Joel didn't know that. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time she talked about leaving me? Really leaving, not just complaining about our marriage? Joel didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's the thing, Doc. You think you're the hero in this story. The knight in shining armor rescuing the poor neglected wife from her boring husband. But you're not the hero. You're the other man, and other men are disposable. You're wrong. Am I? We'll see. Joel stood up abruptly. Stay away from me, Mick, and stay away from my practice, my home, and my life. Or what? Or I'll make you regret it. The threat hung in the air for a moment. Then Denny spoke up for the first time since Joel had arrived. Did you just threaten my friend? Joel looked at Denny, really looked at him, and seemed to realize for the first time that he was outnumbered. Denny was 6'3" and built like the linebacker he'd been in high school. Joel was fit, but he was a gym rat, not a fighter. This isn't over, Joel said, but he was already backing away from the table. No, I agreed. It's not. He left the pub quickly, and I watched through the window as he got into his BMW and drove away. "Think he'll try something?" Denny asked. "I hope so, because if he does, I'll be ready for him." The first phase of my plan was complete. Joel was rattled, Lena was isolated, and their fairy tale romance was starting to crack under pressure. But I was just getting started. The weekend brought new developments. Saturday morning, I was having breakfast when Lena stormed into the kitchen, her phone clutched in her hand. "Joel's landlord is evicting him," she announced. "Is he now? Don't pretend you don't know about this. Mr. Peterson said he received a complaint about inappropriate activities in Joel's condo." I buttered my toast carefully. Maybe Joel should have thought about that before he started bringing married women to his place. "This is harassment, Mick. I could have you arrested." "For what? Making a phone call? Expressing concern about illegal activities?" "There's nothing illegal about what we're doing. Adultery is still a crime in this state, technically, but I was actually referring to the tax evasion." Lena's face went pale. "What tax evasion? Oh, you didn't know? Joel's been taking cash payments from some of his patients and not reporting them. I'm sure it's just an oversight." It was another lie, but a plausible one. Cash businesses were always suspected of skimming, and Joel's practice would be no exception. "You're making that up." "Am I? Want to bet the IRS won't be interested in taking a look?" Lena stared at me for a long moment. "I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the same man I've always been. The difference is, I'm not pretending everything's fine anymore." She left without another word, and I heard her car peel out of the driveway a few minutes later. Sunday was quieter. I spent the morning at the hardware store, catching up on paperwork and inventory. Around noon, Marcia stopped by with some interesting news. "Heard Joel's been asking around about private investigators," she said. "Has he now? Seems he thinks someone's been following him. Can't imagine why." I hadn't been following Joel, but I had been keeping track of his movements through other means. The beauty of a small town was that everyone knew everyone else's business. Joel couldn't go anywhere without someone noticing. "Paranoia is a terrible thing," I observed. "Sure is. Oh, and there's something else. Lena's been calling around, trying to find a new place to live. Seems she's having trouble finding anyone willing to rent to her." That was interesting. "Why?" "Word gets around. Landlords don't like drama, and a woman in the middle of a messy divorce is nothing but drama." Monday brought the first direct retaliation. I arrived at the store to find my front window had been egged, and someone had keyed "loser" into the side of my truck. Denny was already there, cleaning up the mess. "Security camera catch anything?" I asked. "Nope." They knew where the blind spot was. Professional job, then. Or someone who's been watching the place. I called the police and filed a report, knowing it wouldn't lead anywhere but wanting the incident on record. Officer Vance took my statement with the weary expression of a man who'd seen too many domestic disputes. "Any idea who might have done this?" he asked. "Could be anyone. You know how people talk in this town." "Yeah, I do, and I know this situation with your wife is getting out of hand. Maybe it's time to consider counseling." "Counseling? My wife's been cheating on me for over a year, and you think we need counseling?" "I think you need to find a way to resolve this before someone gets hurt." After he left, I stood in front of my store looking at the damage. The message was clear: back off or things would escalate. But they'd picked the wrong target. I'd been dealing with bullies and troublemakers my whole life. A little vandalism wasn't going to scare me off. That afternoon, I made some calls of my own. The first was to Joel's malpractice insurance company. I'd done some research and discovered that doctors were required to report any investigations or complaints to their insurers. If Joel hadn't disclosed the medical board complaint, he could be in violation of his policy. The second call was to the Better Business Bureau. Joel's practice had a few negative reviews online, mostly from patients who felt they'd been overcharged or undertreated. I filed a formal complaint, citing concerns about billing practices and professional conduct. The third call was to the local health department. Chiropractors were required to maintain certain standards of cleanliness and safety in their offices. I'd never been inside Joel's practice, but I was willing to bet they'd find something worth citing during a surprise inspection. None of these actions were illegal or even unethical. I was simply exercising my rights as a concerned citizen to report potential problems to the appropriate authorities. But the cumulative effect would be devastating. Tuesday evening, Lena came home in tears. "They're investigating Joel," she sobbed. "The medical board, his insurance company, even the health department. They're trying to destroy him." "Who's trying to destroy him?" "You know who." I know he's been having an affair with a married woman. Maybe that's finally catching up with him. This isn't about the affair. This is about you being vindictive and petty. I looked at my wife, crying over another man, and felt something cold settle in my chest. You want to know what petty looks like? I asked. What? Petty is what you've been doing for the past year. Lying to me, cheating on me, laughing about me with your friends. Petty is destroying our marriage because you were bored. That's not... What I'm doing isn't petty, Lena. It's justice. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Joel wants to leave town. Start over somewhere else. Good idea. He wants me to come with him. I nodded slowly. And I'm thinking about it. You should. She looked surprised. You want me to leave? I want you to be honest for once in your life. If you want to be with Joel, go be with Joel. Stop pretending you want to save our marriage. I don't know what I want anymore. Yes, you do. You've known for over a year. You just don't want to be the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. No? Then what are you? She didn't have an answer for that. Wednesday brought news that Joel's practice was being audited by the state medical board. The complaint I'd filed had triggered a formal investigation, and Joel would have to provide detailed records of his patient interactions and billing practices. Thursday, his malpractice insurance company suspended his coverage pending their own investigation. Friday, the health department found violations in his office and ordered him to cease operations until the problems were corrected. By the end of the week, Dr. Joel Hartman was effectively out of business. You've destroyed him, Lena accused when she came home Friday night. I've done nothing but report legitimate concerns to the appropriate authorities. Those weren't legitimate concerns, they were lies. Were they? The medical board found evidence of inappropriate relationships with patients. The insurance company found unreported complaints. The health department found actual violations. Sounds pretty legitimate to me. You orchestrated all of this? I made some phone calls. What happened after that was out of my control. Lena sank into a kitchen chair, looking defeated. He's talking about suing you. For what? Exercising my rights as a citizen? For harassment, for defamation, for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Let him try. Discovery should be interesting. She looked up at me with something like fear in her eyes. What do you mean? I mean, if Joel wants to take this to court, we'll have to examine all the evidence. His patient files, his financial records, his personal communications. Everything will become public record. Including what? Including the text messages between you two, the photos from your hotel visits, the credit card records showing how he's been spending money on you while claiming business expenses. Lena's face went white. You have all that? I have enough. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. What do you want, Mick? I want my wife back, the woman I married 23 years ago, the one who loved me, respected me, and honored our vows. That woman is gone. I know. That's why I want you gone too. The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. After a moment, Lena stood up and walked out of the room. I heard her on the phone a few minutes later, probably calling Joel or Trish or one of her other enablers. But it didn't matter what she said or who she said it to. The endgame was approaching, and I held all the cards. Saturday morning, I woke up to find Lena packing suitcases in our bedroom. Going somewhere? I asked. Joel found a job in Phoenix. We're leaving tomorrow. Running away? Starting over? I watched her fold clothes into her designer luggage, the same suitcases we'd used for our anniversary trips to the beach. What about the divorce? My lawyer says we can handle it remotely. No need to drag this out. Very civilized. She paused in her packing. Mick, I know you hate me right now, but I want you to know that I never meant for things to happen this way. How did you mean for them to happen? I hoped we could end things amicably, like adults. Adults don't cheat on their spouses. I know, I made mistakes. Mistakes? Lena, you had an affair for over a year. You lied to me every single day. You destroyed our marriage and tried to make me think it was my fault. Those aren't mistakes. That's a pattern of deliberate choices. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking. I was unhappy. So you said, but you never tried to fix it. You never suggested counseling or therapy or even an honest conversation about what was wrong. You just found someone else and decided I was disposable. That's not how it was. Then how was it? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I fell out of love with you. The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. When? I don't know. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual, like watching a sunset. You don't notice it happening until it's already dark. And you didn't think I deserved to know? I thought maybe the feelings would come back. I thought maybe if I gave it time. You gave it to someone else instead. Yes. At least she was being honest now. What about Sarah? I asked, referring to our daughter. I'll call her tonight. Explain everything. What will you tell her? The truth. That we grew apart, and I found someone who makes me happy. And what about the part where you cheated on her father for over a year? Lena's face flushed. She doesn't need to know the details. She'll find out. Small town, remember? Everyone knows everyone else's business. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. I nodded slowly. You know what the saddest part of all this is? What? I would have let you go. If you'd come to me 2 years ago and said you weren't happy, if you'd asked for a divorce, I would have been hurt. But I would have understood. I would have helped you pack. I would have wished you well. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. Mick, but you didn't do that. You chose to lie, to cheat, to humiliate me. You chose to make me the villain in your story so you could feel better about what you were doing. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your fairy tale romance turned into a nightmare, but you're not sorry for what you did to me. She didn't deny it. I left her to finish packing and went downstairs to make coffee. A few minutes later, I heard her car pull out of the driveway, probably going to Joel's place to help him pack too. The house felt different with her gone. Quieter, but also lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. Around noon, Denny stopped by with a 6-pack of beer and a grim expression. Heard they're leaving town, he said. Tomorrow morning. Good riddance. We sat on my back porch, drinking beer and watching the neighbors mow their lawns. It was a perfect Saturday afternoon, the kind of day Lena and I used to spend working in the garden or planning home improvement projects. You okay? Denny asked. I will be. What are you going to do now? It was a good question. What did a 46-year-old man do after his marriage imploded? How did you rebuild a life that had been torn apart by betrayal? I'm going to survive, I said, and then I'm going to thrive. That's the spirit. But first, I'm going to make sure they remember why they left. Denny raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean, their story isn't over yet. They think they're riding off into the sunset, but they're forgetting something important. What's that? Actions have consequences, and some consequences follow you wherever you go. That evening, I made one final phone call, this one to a private investigator in Phoenix. Mr. Rodriguez, this is Mick Landry. I understand you specialize in background checks and surveillance. That's right. What can I do for you? I have some information about a couple that's moving to your city. A chiropractor named Joel Hartman and his girlfriend, Lena Landry. They're both fleeing some legal troubles here, and I thought the medical community in Phoenix should know what they're dealing with. What kind of legal troubles? Medical board investigations, insurance fraud, adultery, that sort of thing. I have documentation. I see. And what exactly are you looking for? I want to make sure the right people know about their history before they set up shop in Phoenix. Professional courtesy, you might say. I understand. Email me what you have, and I'll see what I can do. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen and thought about the past few weeks. The discovery, the confrontation, the systematic destruction of Joel's career and reputation. Part of me felt guilty about how far I'd taken things, but only a small part. Sunday morning, I watched from my living room window as Joel's BMW pulled into my driveway. He and Lena got out, both looking nervous. They walked to my front door and knocked. I took my time answering. We're leaving, Lena said without preamble. I know. This is goodbye, Joel added. Is it? They exchanged glances. Joel cleared his throat. Look, Mick, I know things got out of hand between us, but it's over now. We're starting fresh in Phoenix, and we'd appreciate it if you'd let us move on with our lives. Let you move on? Stop the harassment, the phone calls, the complaints, the investigations, all of it. I looked at Joel, really looked at him, and saw a broken man. His practice was ruined, his reputation destroyed, his future uncertain. The confident, smug doctor who'd stolen my wife was gone, replaced by someone who looked scared and desperate. You want me to stop? Yes. Then answer one question honestly. What? Was it worth it? Joel's face went pale. What? Destroying my marriage? Ruining your career? Turning my wife into a social pariah? Was it worth it for a few months of sneaking around in cheap motels? He didn't answer. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you traded everything you had for a woman who was willing to cheat on her husband of 23 years. What makes you think she won't do the same thing to you? That's enough, Lena said sharply. Is it? Because I'm just getting started. I turned to face her. You want to know what I found out about your boyfriend? He's been sued for malpractice 6 times, not twice. He's been sleeping with married patients for years. And he's got a gambling problem that's left him nearly bankrupt. Lena's face went white. That's not true, isn't it? Ask him about the poker games. Ask him about the money he owes to some very unpleasant people in Atlantic City. Ask him why he really needs to leave town so badly. Joel's silence was answer enough. You're lying, Lena whispered, but there was doubt in her voice. Am I? Joel, want to tell her about the loan sharks? Or should I? Shut up, Joel said, but his voice was shaking. $50,000. That's what he owes, and they're getting impatient. It was a complete fabrication, but it was plausible enough to plant seeds of doubt. And doubt, once planted, had a way of growing. Joel? Lena turned to face him. Is that true? Of course not. He's just trying to break us up. Then why won't you look at me? The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Joel spoke. We need to go. The moving truck is waiting. They turned to leave, but I called after them. Lena. She stopped and looked back at me. When it falls apart, and it will fall apart, don't come crawling back. I won't be here. She stared at me for a long moment, then followed Joel to his car. They drove away without another word. I never saw either of them again. 3 months later, I got a call from the private investigator in Phoenix. Joel's medical license had been suspended pending investigation into his background. He was working as a massage therapist at a strip mall clinic. Lena had found a job as a receptionist at a dental office, making a third of what she'd earned at TechFlow. 6 months later, Sarah called to tell me they'd broken up. Joel had disappeared in the middle of the night, leaving Lena with a pile of debts and a broken lease. She was living in a studio apartment and waiting tables at a chain restaurant. She wants to come home, Sarah said. This isn't her home anymore. Dad, I'm not being cruel, sweetheart. I'm being realistic. Your mother made her choice. She chose Joel over me, adventure over stability, lies over truth. She has to live with the consequences. But she's miserable. Good. Maybe she'll learn something. I'd sold the house and moved into a smaller place across town. Business at the hardware store was better than ever. Apparently, the community respected a man who stood up for himself. I'd started dating a widow named Carol who owned the flower shop downtown. She was kind, honest, and had no interest in drama or games. Life was good. A year after Lena left, I got a letter from her. She was back in upstate New York, living with her sister and trying to rebuild her life. She wanted to apologize, to explain, to somehow make things right between us. I threw the letter away without reading it. Some mistakes can't be forgiven. Some betrayals can't be overcome. And some people don't deserve second chances. Lena had chosen her path when she decided to cheat on me. Everything that happened afterward was just the natural consequence of that choice. I chose a different path. I chose to fight back, to refuse to be a victim, to make sure that actions had consequences. In the end, I won. Not because I was better than them or smarter or more deserving. I won because I understood something they didn't. The nice guy doesn't always finish last. Sometimes he finishes first. And sometimes he's the only one left standing when the dust settles.